On this episode of Patrol Tactical, we talk about how to field disassemble your AR platform rifle. Hey guys, this is Dave with Patrol Tactical. Thanks for checking out this video. Today we're talking about how to field disassemble your AR platform rifle. And we're going to cover both a direct impingement rifle as well as a piston rifle, because there is just a little bit of difference between the two operating systems of rifles. Now, I'm not here to start a debate over which one is better. There's tons of videos ad nauseum about that very topic. But I will just say that there are pros and cons to each system, and you have to decide what works best for you. But nonetheless, I'm going to show you both. We want to make sure that safety is absolutely number one. Our work surface is free of any magazines, ammunition, loose rounds, whatever it might be. We want to make sure that's clear. And obviously both of these guns are unloaded because they have safety flags. But to make sure the gun is unloaded, we're going to go ahead, lock the bolt back to the rear. I'll remove the flag. And we're going to do our standard look drill, which is look in the mag well, look in the loading area, look in the chamber, look away, and do it again. Look in the mag well, loading area, and chamber. Now we have verified that this gun is unloaded. Now, to save time, we have already verified this one is unloaded, as well as all the crew on site. We're going to start with the direct impingement rifle, and then we'll add to it on what is different for the piston side of the gun. First things first, before we can take it apart, we do need to put the bolt back into battery, because right now the bolt carrier group is actually back in the receiver extension, and you can try and it's not going to come apart like this. So you can either use the charging handle or you can press on the bolt release and the bolt is going to go back forward. Now, it should be noted that the firearm's on safe, but if the hammer was dropped, so for whatever reason, if you had the gun and you're like, it won't go on safe, that means that the hammer is in the down or the fired position. So if we cycle the gun, now we can move the safety selector. So just a little quick tip or knowledge for you guys in case you're wondering about that if you're new to the platform. With the bolt forward, now what we're going to do is we're going to separate the upper receiver, which is this portion right here, from the lower receiver group. Now how we do that is there are these pins right here, the takedown pin and the pivot pin. Some people call them both takedown pins. Some people call this the takedown pin and the pivot pin, because then technically it could pivot. But takedown pin, pivot pin, and there is two different sides. So on the right side of the rifle, which is as if we were behind it, so this is the right side of the gun, you'll notice that the head of the pin is much larger than the left side. See how much smaller those are? So that would tell us that there's no way that big pin is going to go through the gun and come out this side. So what's actually going to happen is we're going to push on the left side and come out the right. Now, so we're going to just quickly push. It's going to detent. You'll feel a detent compress, and it'll come out slightly. And we're going to pull back. Now, I like to rotate the gun so it's upside down like this. All right, so it's upside down as we pull the pin out. If we didn't do that, if we had the gun right side up, what could happen is it could pivot, and if your fingers were in there, it could come down and it could slam your finger, and it doesn't feel good. So I like to work with the gun upside down. If you have a table that's not going to damage your optic or whatever, it's certainly okay to set it like that as well. So pull this rear takedown pin out. Now we can go ahead and pivot the lower receiver, so we can either grab it with our thumb like so and take apart the components, or we could also remove the front while we're holding it, and it pulls out just like that, and we can separate the lower from the upper. So whatever method you like is just fine. If you're going to be doing some cleaning, some lubrication, whatever, sometimes it's easier to work with the two halves. So I'll go ahead and separate the lower receiver, and now we have the upper receiver. And again, I still like to work upside down. We're going to pull the charging handle, and we're just going to pull it back about an inch, okay? Just like that. We don't need to pull it all the way out, because stuff could happen and it could fall, and we don't want that to happen. So we're going to pull it out an inch. We're going to grab the bolt carrier group, which is what's inside the upper receiver. We're going to go straight back to the rear, set it aside, and we're going to pull the charging handle all the way back until it stops. Now, it does stop on purpose, so don't just keep pulling and pulling and pulling and try to overpower it, because you could break something. So when it stops, then we're going to actually lift up like that and then come straight out. Now the reason why it stopped is there are these little ears right here. And that is what stops. And then we have to lift up through a little track and then back out. So when we put it back in, we'll actually put it in the large opening of the upper receiver, drop those ears down in the little track, and then it'll drop down into its track like that. So up and out. We can set the upper aside. As far as the bolt carrier group goes, it does further disassemble from here. Now, if you're just doing basic cleaning or basic lubrication, you don't need to take it apart further than this, but I'm going to show you how, just because it's not that hard. First thing we need to do is remove the firing pin, retaining pin, and that is located, you can see the small side right here, and if we rotate it, you can see the large side. It's basically just a cotter pin. Now, most of them you can grab with your fingernail and just pull out like that. But if you have a tough one, you may need to have like a small pick or something like that just to grab it, just like that. So we're going to take that firing pin, retaining pin, and set it aside. The name implies it retains the firing pin. So then we can just rotate the carrier and the firing pin should just come right out. If it doesn't, just go ahead and give it a little tap and the firing pin will come out. The firing pin came right out of here, and to put it back, it just goes. It's a little tough to see, so you guys can see it on camera, but just like that. So it just comes right out. Next comes out the cam pin, and the cam pin is this pin right here with this square head, and you can see it has a camming action as the bolt rotates. So what we're going to do is it's like that. We're going to compress the bolt so you can see the cam pin. We're going to rotate the cam pin like that. So it's kind of rectangular now, and we're going to lift up and out, set it aside. Now with the cam pin out, we can take the bolt, and as we're pulling it out, we actually also want to twist like that. So now we have the carrier and the bolt. And the reason why we want to pull and twist is because we have these gas rings right here. And they're kind of like piston rings of a combustion engine. And if you'll look at the system, if you're a mechanic or have an automotive mechanic background, you'll actually see some similarities between a modern combustion engine and this. Basically, this is the piston. We have piston rings, we have exhaust ports. So it's very similar mechanically to a car. And likewise, when we put it back together, when we get to that friction point, we want to twist and compress. So now we have the major components taken care of. We have the lower receiver assembly, we have the upper receiver assembly, charging handle, the bolt carrier, the bolt, the firing pin retaining pin, and the cam pin. So now we can take our rags, you can take your toothbrush, you can do whatever cleaning you need to do, get it ready for reassembly. Reassembly is really simple. So first things first, we're going to grab our carrier and the bolt, and you'll actually put this in until you feel it, meet just a hair of resistance, okay? When you get to that point, then we need to compress those gas rings by twisting and pushing in. Now you'll notice that the bolt will just spin and spin and spin. We want to make sure that the extractor, which is this portion right here, is on the right side. So that extractor is on the same side as the exhaust ports. Opposite of the extractor is what's called the ejector. And as the names apply, they basically will extract the rounds and eject the rounds. The ejector is spring-loaded, and that actually what ejects it out of the ejection port. The extractor has a little claw, and that will grab onto the rim of the cartridge and pull it out of the chamber. So it's important to make sure that it's on the right side. The reason why is because the hole in the bolt right here that the cam pin goes in will only go in one way, and it will stop. Notice how it doesn't go all the way through. If we had it spun around the opposite way, the cam pin will not go in. And every so often I do get someone tell me, yeah, the cam pin won't go in, this little square thing won't go in there. Rotate the bolt and it'll go in just like so. So again, we're going to put the bolt in the carrier, we're going to give it a little bit of a twist as we push in, make sure the extractor is on the right side, and then we're going to rotate it. So in the cam pin track, which is this piece right here, you can see the hole where the cam pin will go. We'll insert the cam pin and we'll rotate it, give it a little tug and rotate it. So it's like this way instead of like that to remove it. We rotate it so it's like this. And we're going to pull and extend the bolt all the way forward. Then we're going to grab our firing pin. We're going to insert the firing pin all the way down, okay? Now, sometimes a common mistake is the firing pin will be like that, where it'll still be sticking up a little bit, and then they'll try to put the retaining pin in and it doesn't work. You have to make sure the firing pin is all the way down forward like that. Then we're going to take our firing pin retaining pin and we're going to put the legs of the firing pin retaining pin into the larger beveled hole. It almost looks like a funnel. So we'll take these legs, we'll put them in, and we'll push straight through just like that. Make sure that it's all the way in and flush. The reason why it's beveled like that is for the head of the cotter pin, and then it goes all the way there. If you're having trouble, it's a little tough to see, but if you look in here, you can actually see where the cotter pin goes. And sometimes what I find is you actually kind of have to guide it a little bit like that to get it in there, or you have to kind of rotate it. Like I said, you're not going to be able to see it on camera, but right down in there, if you look, you'll see where that cotter pin goes right across, and you'll be able to kind of guide it right in. Sometimes they can be stubborn, but don't give up, you'll get it. So now the bolt carrier group is back together. Charging handle, of course, we don't need to do anything with. It doesn't come apart or anything like that. And we've reassembled the bolt carrier group. So now we're ready to put everything back inside the gun. So grab the upper receiver. Again, I like to work upside down. We're gonna grab the charging handle. Charging handle has a kind of a hook right here, and that hook actually is what pulls right there, like so, to cycle it. So we want to make sure that the hook, if we're upside down, is kind of looking at you. So we go in the large hole of the upper receiver, and then the little ears that I pointed out will drop into place. They'll drop into a groove that is cut into the upper receiver right here. And that's probably really tough to see on camera, but hopefully you guys can get it. It'll drop straight down into its track, and then the charging handle will slide freely just like so. Don't compress it all the way forward and lock it. It does need to be pulled back to the rear. Then we're going to take the bolt carrier and this gas key, which is right here, that will go in the track of the charging handle like that. Now, a lot of times I'll get guys who are new to the platform, they get confused. They'll put it in this way, they'll put it in upside down, and I get it, you're new and everybody makes mistakes. So make sure that you're paying attention. The bolt locks into the chamber, the gas key goes into the charging handle just like that. Then we can push the whole assembly forward. It'll lock in place. You can lock the charging handle and we're all set. Now be careful, don't just throw this around willy-nilly, because if you didn't have it locked in properly, you could still have it to where it comes out and falls out and hits the floor. So we don't just want to throw stuff around. The other thing I'll point out is that if the bolt is compressed like that, and you go to put it in, it won't go in, okay? So then you'll be like, ugh, get the hammer. The hammer is not the answer, so don't get the hammer. What happened is when we compressed the bolt, the cam pin rotated, and now it's in the way. So we just need to extend the bolt. Then we can go ahead and put the gas key into the charging handle just like that. Line everything up, go straight forward, push the carrier all the way forward, lock the charging handle. So those are a couple of things that I've seen along the way for new people that can give them problems. The other thing is that when you set your lower aside, sometimes these pins will close even just slightly, and then that'll make putting it back together much more difficult, and you'll be like, ah, it's getting so frustrating, get the hammer. No, don't get the hammer. Just make sure both of the pins are out just like so, as you can see here. Then we can go ahead and grab the upper, set it on the lower, compress the pins, just like that. Now we are ready to do our function checks. Make sure the gun is functioning as it's supposed to. So that is how to field disassemble a direct impingement AR platform gun. It's very, very simple to do. As you can see, there's not a ton of parts and you don't really need any tools. Now, as far as a piston gun goes, there is just going to be a couple of differences. Number one, of course, is the piston components. Now, the piston components on the Adams system are really easy to take out. You don't need any tools. You don't need to remove the handguard or the rail or anything like that. All we're going to do is compress this spring-loaded detent on the gas plug. You can see that right there. We're going to compress that and we're going to rotate it counterclockwise. Then, once it's counterclockwise, all the way to the counterclockwise position, the piston components will just come right out of the front of the gas block, just like so. The piston components are the gas plug, the drive rod, the spring, and bushing. And the bushing just snaps from the spring just like that. To put it back together, all we're going to do is take the spring, put it on the drive rod, kind of rotate it into place so it snaps into position. Take the bushing, and there is two edges of the bushing. There's one with a cut or beveling there, and then there's one that's flush. We want to take the one that has this relief cut. That's what interfaces with the spring. We're going to rotate that down. We're going to compress and twist, and it'll lock in just like that. You can see that it's locked in because it doesn't come off. Gas plug goes in the drive rod, and then you can put it right back in the rifle. Now, some guys have a little bit of issue getting it lined up because it'll come down at an angle or it won't, line up with the hole in the upper receiver. Just take your time, go nice and slow. Once you get it, go all the way in, make sure we're still in that 3 o'clock or counterclockwise position. We're going to compress that little detent and rotate it back to the 12 o'clock position until you hear that click and it snaps up into place. If we keep rotating it, the 1 o'clock position is a reduced gas setting for suppressor use, and the 3 o'clock position, as we're looking at it from the front, is a off position. It reduces all the gas. The counterclockwise position is 9 o'clock to take it apart. The other difference with a piston gun is the bolt carrier itself. Now again, it'll take apart just the same. The pins come out, the upper and lower. The difference in the carrier is subtle, but you'll notice it does not have a gas key. It has a strike surface, and this is what the piston will actually strike. And then on the cam pin, I actually have a roller cam pin in here just to reduce with wear. And then this is actually spring loaded. So instead of gas rings, there's actually a spring in there, and that just kind of helps to keep everything in alignment. But as far as taking it apart, it's the same way. We're going to take out the firing pin retaining pin, drop the firing pin, take out the cam pin and the bolt. And now you can see that it has this bolt spring and no gas rings. And then it assembles just the same. So just to save time, we're not going to have to go through that. So those are the differences between the piston and the DI. And again, they're very minimal. So if you can take apart and field disassemble a DI gun, you can do it on a piston gun as well. We hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions about the AR platform, any videos you'd like to see, please leave a comment below or interact with us on Facebook. I'll put a link in the description. If you like what you've seen, please check out our other videos on our channel and like, share, and subscribe. We would love to have our community grow. Thanks for watching. Whenever you're working with firearms, make sure you're doing so safely. Have a great day.